Welcome everybody, it's Rev. I figured I would do uh just the thoughts on the metagame, kind of opining on the metagame uh on Edison, with a few developments, just because I feel like we've had a few big tournaments and I just have some thoughts that I want to get out there. Um, if you do like the content, subscribe. If you don't like it, unsubscribe, find another channel. It's totally fine with me. Um, I am, whenever I make these videos that are my opinion, they really are, again, just my opinion. I always get a lot of flack for them. If you're looking for somebody that plays the game more casually or is going to feed you some of that sweet, sweet copium, there are plenty of other channels that will do that. But if you're looking for an honest, competitive overview of where I see, emphasis on I see the Edison metagame going, that's what this video is going to be about. So, if you disagree with anything, happy to be proven wrong, but leave it in the comments. So these are the decks I want to kind of talk about, and some of the things that I'm seeing, and um, we're going to talk about deck choices and all that good stuff as well. So first up is Blackwings. There's no surprise here that Blackwings is one of the best decks of the format. Um, Something that I'm getting quite tired of is people saying it's the best deck of the format. And frankly, I really, really don't think that's the case. Um, the one thing that I heard, I think it was Ludo say, a long time ago in like a separate Discord, and then even later in a video was, comparing and contrasting like Blackwings with Valu, and um, he said, Blackwings is an engine deck and Valu is a pile, and to that point, I do agree. Valu is a pile, and Blackwings is an engine deck. But if you really look at the engine of Blackwings, it's very, very mid, if not just outright bad, with the exception of Black Whirlwind. Um, what makes Blackwings good is they win via a few things. And I'm going to talk about a concept called a reverse sack that I think is really important on kind of breaking down how decks win. Um, and the concept of a reverse sack is it's not you getting lucky, it's your opponent just getting unlucky or bricking. And a proactive deck like Blackwings allows you to reverse sack quite frequently because you have the option to just normal summon guy attack. And it's a concept that I haven't really heard anyone talk about just because I don't think it is a concept. I just kind of made it up. Um, but we're going to have more to say on that with Herob as well. But it's also why I think in formats like GOAT, Warrior can just sometimes steamroll through a bracket because they're reverse sacking. It's not like they might not be drawing all the Trin, but like their opponents are just not drawing spies or not drawing, you know, enough stall or outs or whatever it might be, and they just reverse sack their way through a bracket. So I think Blackwings is really good at reverse sacking just because it can proactively normal summon guy attack and put you on, a somewhat quick clock. Um, and then it's carried also by Whirlwind. Whirlwind is a broken card, but when you look at like the actual engine of Blackwings, it's not good. Like all of the cards have restrictions. They all have limiting effects. They all have like only one effect usually. Um, and like when you compare it to something like a frog card or like the frog engine, all the frog cards have multiple effects. They're almost all overstated. Um, there are no restrictions. Like, in fact, there's like things that like lift restrictions. Like if you just really read, like if you were to read, like let's just like take an example of like let's just pull up some Blackwing cards. Like let's pull up Blizzard and let's recreate them and like let's take a Vayu and like let's recreate them if they were frog cards and like Ashura. Or like let's even do like Bora because Bora is like the most egregiously bad Blackwing. So if Blizzard were a Blackwing card, it would read when this card is normal summoned, you can target one level 4 or lower Blackwing monster and special summon that from your graveyard. There would be no defense position restriction. There would be no special summoning restriction. My god, it might even work if you fucking special summoned it if it were a frog card. I mean, it really like It really would be that way. Vayu, on the other hand, it would not have this line of text. It just wouldn't. It wouldn't have this line of text. So you'd be able to sync with it on field, and then you'd be able to sync again with it in grave. Bora would have to have another effect. And look at this. It has another restriction, which is that if you control another Blackwing monster other than Bora, a frog card would not have this. A frog card would do piercing if it were a Blackwing card, and it would have built-in protection or some sort of grave recursion. Like Shura would not negate like monsters that it special summons, and it would also be worded as an if, so that it wouldn't miss timing if it was right code. So I mean, just the wording on Blackwing cards is bad. The engine is carried entirely by the deck enabling deck devastation, virus, oppression, and whirlwind, and being able to run dead. The Blackwing cards themselves are not good, and I will stand by that to my dying breath. They're just not good cards. They just enable some very broken stuff, and it's enough of an engine in Edison that you can reverse sack people. All right, so that's my tangent on Blackwings, just because I'm really tired of people saying that it's a tier 0 deck and there's no other option in the format. It's just not the case. Um, Next is Vayu. I think Vayu is still very, very good. And another thing that's been happening is people saying, oh, the death of Vayu, like one event goes by where Vayu doesn't win, or one event goes by where maybe Vayu doesn't get like a bunch of top spots, and people say, oh, it's got such a bad Frog matchup, it's got such a bad Amaryllis matchup, and the deck is dead. Vayu is a good deck. It does the same thing that Blackwings does, which enables deck dev and oppression, except better, and you get to run a bunch of blowout cards too, like Burial and Return. It's a really, really good deck. And I think that transitions nicely into the viruses. I said this before anybody else. Quote me on it. Check the tapes. Virus is going to define Edison format. No questions asked. Moving forward, this card is insane. And it's really, really good in the hands of good players. And good players that have played multiple formats understand the power of not only removal, but also perfect knowledge. Edison's a format where perfect knowledge can be exploited so much because you can usually just kill people in like 2 turns. So if you know they don't have gores and you know exactly how to play around their traps, you can just kill them. You just kill them out of nowhere. So I really do think the virus value versions are on the comeuppance. It's a good deck. It's a really good deck. And I hope, if you plan on playing Edison moving forward, um, that you are ready to get deck dev'd a lot and probably even eradicated a lot because that's coming your way. So that's going to have some, I think, very profound implications on how people build decks moving forward. And it's going to make the format, despite already being pretty toxic and high rolly, even more so. So watch out. It's going to get worse. Next is frogs. So I do think frogs as an engine, as a standalone engine, are the most powerful deck of the format in a vacuum. Think about Frog's game 1 win rate. It's insanely high. It is the best engine. They just don't get to run deck dev. They don't get to run oppression. What they do get to run, which people are catching on to, and again, you kind of heard it here first, was Light and Darkness Dragon. That card does the same thing for frogs that oppression and deck dev do for Vayu and Blackwings. If you want to gatekeep really shitty rogue decks, find a way to enable Light and Darkness Dragon in your frog build. It's very, very good. Um, Secondarily, I think that is more of a siding strategy as opposed to a main deck strategy. Um, Whereas a lot of players would never main deck dev and they would main deck one oppression in Vayu and Blackwings. Um, I think for Vayu and Blackwings, it's going to be bare minimum one main deck dev moving forward, just for the high roll factor. For Frogs, I'm not sold on main deck Light and Darkness Dragon. As a side gatekeep card, though, it's really good. If you summon Light and Darkness Dragon versus like most rogue decks, or like something that can't like out it with one card, you usually just win. Like it's an Omni negate that negates everything, and it gets shit from the grave when it dies. It's really good. So I think frogs are an incredibly strong deck. I'd place them at number 3 at this point. Every single frog card is insanely busted and has way too many effects and no limiting clauses on them. Substitute is maybe the most powerful card of the format. Mm, um, I don't know. There's some other really powerful cards. It's better than Whirlwind. I'll tell you that right now. Substitute is way better than Whirlwind, and it's at 3, and you can search it with 1 for 1. So, and you can get it back with salvage. So I mean, it's just an insane card. It's a starter. In like the worst case scenario, it's an insanely good starter. In the best case scenario, you can go like plus infinity off of it. In like the middling scenario, it creates a lock for you that replaces itself with dupes. Like this card is just absolutely insane. So frogs are really good. I do want to talk about the frog variants that are coming up. So I would put frogs in a few main categories that are seeing popularity right now. First is hero frogs. Second is pure frog monarch, and then lastly is the dream frog variants. Um, I still firmly believe that the best frog deck is Hero Frog, and I am very confident in that opinion. I've tried them all, and there's just so much less linearity in the Hero Frog variant than the Frog Monarch variant, and there's so much less brickiness in the Hero Frog variant than the Dream Frog variant. Dream Frogs do have a lot of non-linearity and complexity of plays, but you just run a bunch of bad cards and it makes all of the problems that frogs have worse. So you get worse to deck dev, you get worse to oppression, you get worse to like even crow, which is very popular in sides, or it should be popular in sides. If you're not running at least 1 to 2 crows, you're out of your mind. So like I just want someone to explain to me in one sentence what is Dream Frogs doing? Like what is the point? Why are you running this deck over another frog variant? And I cannot find an answer. Like what is really happening with Dream Frogs, I think, is that there's just players that sometimes get extremely lucky with the order that they draw their deck. Because your deck, you almost to win any game, you have to like draw Substitute first and then start resolving Pot of Avarice. But what if you're drawing just regular frogs and Pot of Avarice? Or what if you're just drawing Pot of Avarice, like, and Monarchs? It just doesn't make any sense to me. So you're slimming down on starters, and then you're recycling bricks back into your deck. And somebody in the comments will say, "Oh no, that you're using Pot of Avarice wrong. You don't recycle all the bricks in your deck, and then you shit them all out again with like Substitute." But like, I get in a perfect scenario that's what should happen, and that's like how the deck was designed, but in practice, that's just not what happens at all. You just brick, and then you are forced to send back a bunch of really bad top decks into your deck that are deck dev targets, and the deck just doesn't do anything. Like, I really like from any deck in the meta right now, from like my assessment of how good it is versus like the hype it's getting, Dream Frogs is like the biggest disconnect I think I've like almost ever had. There's another really big disconnect which I think we're gonna get to, but like I am not getting it. I am not getting it. Um, Hero Frogs, I don't know what else there is to say. It solves a lot of frog issues. It's non-linear. It's not ultra normal summon reliant. You get to run a bunch of free plus ones that you can search. Like kind of just has everything going for it. Frog Monarch, I think is also really good. I think it's really good against Rogue specifically, and it can gatekeep a lot of it, especially if you're smart and you're side decking some number, if not main decking, Light and Darkness Dragon, because you just get free plus ones. It's a helmet deck. Let's be real. Frog Monarchs is the most helmet deck. Like if you think Frog Monarchs takes like any degree of skill above like Lightsworn, you're just deluding yourself. You're just taking cards and you're tributing them and then you just pray. It's pretty linear, but it's really good linear. So that's how I'd rank them. I'd say Hero Frog, best frog deck. Um, Probably gonna stay about where it is tier wise. I think it's really good. Frog Monarch, I think, is only gonna get better. People are understanding just how insanely strong like taking a monster and then tributing it off is. They're also understanding how strong it is to just stop a battle phase with Vader and then tribute a monster off. It's just insanely good. And then Dream Frogs, I just don't get. I'll just be frank with you guys. I'm not getting it. There's a disconnect. Next is Lightsworn. So, um, I think we can break this down into two buckets. Sworn and then Pure. I don't think Sworn is all that great. Honestly, I think it, of course, has a way higher ceiling and it gives you a lot more gameplay flexibility than Pure Lightsworn does. And it does also create non-games. And if you were to ask me, like, what you're looking for in a deck, that's all of those are on the list. I just think it's not consistent enough. And like some of the like really good stuff it does, it has to do at a minus. So I'd kind of almost just like rather have like a super linear sack deck like Lightsworn that gets to create a bunch of non-games with Consecrated Light and Royal Decree in games 2 and 3. Like, why wouldn't you just want that? Like, why wouldn't like it, would you really have to like? It's like that meme where the guy like does a bunch of tricks and like steps on a rake and like hits himself in the face, and then there's like another guy that just like walks into the rake and hits on his face. Like, just skip out the extra steps. Just sack them. Like, all you're going for is mill Wolf and like draw a bunch of shit with Gareth, drop JD. That's all you need. That's it. You don't need to stop special summons. You need to special summon. You just need to stop them from playing the game. Like all of the decks here create non-games that are good. Blackwings. If they run away with Whirlwind, it's a non-game. If they deck dev you, it can be a non-game. If they oppression you, non-game. Valu does the same exact thing. Virus is even more trying to create non-games. Frog stalls you out and has locks that create non-games and run lad. So like Lightsworn is just the easy button of just creating non-games. Like you don't have to jump through hoops to shut off Blackwings. You just normal summon a Consecrated Light and you flip a Royal Decree. And then you have a bunch of beaters backed by a better hand trap called Honest. What you don't really want to happen is just to brick on a bunch of really shitty deck dev fairy targets and just not be able to do anything. Like what's the point of that? Like you don't need the ceiling. Like this is one of like independently in a vacuum, like one of the most broken cards of the format. Just summon JD. It's a 3,000 beater. It's not even once per turn and then it mills for you. Like what more do you want? Like you don't need Christia. It's just too inconsistent. Next is Hero Beat. Um, so I guess where I'm going again with Lightsworn is I think this deck is so criminally underplayed. It's criminally underplayed. Like it blows my mind that more people aren't running Lightsworn. It's so good, albeit linear and brain dead. Next is Hero Beat. This is something, and I'll be the first to admit it, I was very, very wrong on for a long time. I was coping hard and I said Hero Beat is a good deck. I said Hero Beat was a good deck. So here's some intellectual honesty for you. I said this was a good deck and it had a place in the meta. This shit is trash. It is horrible. And I want to go back to the concept of what I was talking about before, which is reverse sacking and how Hero Beat ever tops. The only way Hero Beat tops is if you get a bracket where your opponents are bricking, because Hero Beat does not create non-games. Hero Beat does not have a crazy ceiling. Hero Beat does not have free wins. What Hero Beat does is consistently enough when your opponent opens slow over 8 rounds is normal summon Stratos followed by normal summon Alias. And that will win you matches and it will win you games when your opponents are drawing shit. But I would rather have a deck that rewards me for when I'm drawing well and also rewards me for when I'm drawing like shit. Hero Beat does not reward you for drawing well. It has a lot of reverse sack wins. So I think the deck is horrible. I would never ever co-sign playing this deck. It's not even that consistent, which is just crazy. Like first of all, you kind of have to like have slightly above average luck and see your Ecalls and Stratoses and Rotas, like to get started turn one, or else you're just so far behind that you can't do anything. And then you summon a vanilla and just hope you can beat them down with it. Like, come on. Like this is not a good deck. Like I coped on it for a very long time, but I think Hero Beat has virtually no place in the meta. Um, and people are saying, hey, with the deck dev resurgence, maybe Hero Beat is going to be better, especially with like there being a renaissance of like Gladiator beasts, which is to some degree true, but are we really at the point in Edison's metagame where you can run a deck that doesn't either give you free wins or create non-games? No. Look, and if you want to play fairies or you want to play X Sabers and have a good time, I'm not here to shit on you. That's totally fine. That's totally fine by me. But for a competitive player and a competitive player base, this is in that same category as X Sabers and that other trash. It's just not a good deck. You need free wins. I don't care if it's, you know, 7% of the time you just get a free win. Your deck needs to free win. And I don't care if it's only 8% of the time that you can create non-games. Your deck needs to create non-games where your opponent cannot play. That is what all of these decks do. Lastly is Gladiator Beasts. So this is another deck that I think has surprised everybody. And I'm not saying 99% of the people in the retro community. Everybody has been surprised with the resurgence and renaissance in Gladiator Beast players and the tears that this deck has been going on. And I'll give props. I did not see that coming. Nobody did. So misery loves company. But when Gladiator Beast kind of does its thing, it's really really high ceiling. I mean, like when you think about like just doing crazy loops and then like looping negates and like it just goes plus near infinity like once it goes off. The hard part is it going off. So I think this is a very good summon attack deck. Not as good as Blackwings, of course. Um, but I think it's really good. Like if you just wanted like to play something in like the tier two ish, um, this deck has surprised me. I think it's still got a lot of room for refinement and innovation as well, just because a lot of the lists at this point I think are just bad. Um, but I think it's surprised me a lot, and I'll give kudos to the people that want to play this deck. I think they're playing it mostly just because it's for fun. Like I know it won the R bet, but I don't think that's your best chance to win a tournament. Um, before the fact. I think any of these other decks would be a better choice other than Herob, which I think is complete shit. So those are my thoughts. Really in summary, I think people are severely overrating Blackwings right now. Almost every tournament this deck under converts. And then there's a handful of extraordinarily lucky Blackwing players that open Whirlwind and Dark Armed a lot that run through the bracket. That's the nature of a high variance deck. It is going to reward lucky players a lot. I think the average Blackwing um, player doesn't do all that well in a bracket. And I don't think it converts all that much. I think it's a deck that rewards luck a lot. Valu, stop shitting on this deck. It's still very good. You get to run ignition effects. You actually have starters. Blackwings has no starters in the deck. Zero. Name a starter, like a one card starter in a Blackwing deck. Sure is not a starter. Boar is not a starter. Zero starters, unless you have other cards that complement them. Um, Virus, severely underplayed because it's brand new. It's very good. It's going to warp the format. Prepare your butt cheeks. Frogs, still also very good. With the deck dev and virus meta we're finding ourselves in, there probably are going to be some fine tuning type things that need to happen for Frogs, but Frogs is insanely powerful. I see Frog players feeling sorry for themselves, like, oh, yeah, maybe this deck just isn't what it used to be. Shut the fuck up. This deck's amazing. It's insane. Like this creates a ton of non-games. Don't feel sorry for yourself if you play Frogs. Um, this is here just to remind me that I think Hero Frogs is the best variant. Lightsworn, criminally underplayed. You do not need additional ceiling. What you need is consistency of sack. You must sack them. That is the point of this format. It's the point of Yu-Gi-Oh. It's the point of playing a game where you don't have to pay cost to play cards. That's the point. Play Lightsworn, people. It's good. It's really good. You could get like top like 30 in ladder and like have never played Edison if you just play this like for like 2 weeks. Hero Beat, never play it. And Glad Beasts, if you want to have fun, go for it. It's really good. It surprised me a lot how much this is coming after people's cheeks. It's tearing through brackets. It's got a good frog matchup. It does stuff to Amaryllis. It's not super, super bad into deck dev. So, I think it does have a place in the meta. If you want to play kind of an aggro summon attack deck, I do think Blackwings are better, but I'd be lying if I didn't say that I don't have my eye on Glad Beasts. Am I an expert, or do I know what I'm talking about when it comes to building a Glad Beast deck? Frankly, not really. No, not really. I've played it a handful of times and was underwhelmed, but the results speak for themselves. This deck can do crazy shit, and I have my eyes out on it. And this is the deck that I'm most uncertain about. This could just be an insane upswing, or it could be another contender in, tier 1.5. So keep your eye out on Lightsworn. Thanks for watching, guys. I'm out.